Hello, and welcome back to another installment of AHLA's Health Law Career Journeys podcast series brought to you by the Early Career Professionals Council. I'm your host, Rob Yates, and I'm a healthcare governance and regulatory compliance advisor with Berkeley Research Group. Our goal here with the series is to highlight the breadth of career paths in AHLA's membership and encourage those who are just starting their careers in health law to explore all of the different possibilities that the space has to offer. Our guest today is Samuel Shapiro, and I'm really excited to chat about his experience as an assistant U.S. attorney for the Western District of Texas. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Could you just explain a little bit about your role as an AUSA and kind of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So I am an assistant U.S. attorney in the civil division, and my office, as with many other U.S. attorneys' offices, splits its civil division into both the affirmative and defensive side. So either affirmative, United States as plaintiff, defensive, United States as defendant, and I am on the affirmative side. So the vast majority of my work is in the False Claims Act arena.
All right. And I know it's different in every U.S. attorney's office, but is your office one that does just healthcare ACE work, or is it also the full breadth of representing the United States as a plaintiff?
We have the full breadth, and though we, most, especially key TAM cases where a whistleblower brings us a case around the country are in healthcare, something like 75%, I think. We in San Antonio, especially because we have a large military presence, have a good number of procurement fraud cases involving defense contractors or even civilian contractors working with the military. So we see a lot of that, and a lot of those cases will not even come to us from they'll be what we call a direct referral, meaning we get it from the agency. Typically an agent who's been working the case up will pass it along to us.
Okay. So how would you say you probably split your time between the procurement cases and the healthcare fraud?
Right now, it's probably 50-50. Add to that a good number of COVID fraud related cases, particularly with the PPP program.
Sure. So how did you end up as an assistant U.S. attorney? I know a lot of people don't come right out of law school or get that gig or end up with their dream job right out of law school. So
no, it's certainly not one that's easy to get right out of school. I would say that for those who are looking to get there as quickly as possible, a direct route is, first of all, doing very well in school and getting a clerkship. I did not go this route, but a number of my colleagues were former clerks and were able to go straight to the U.S. Attorney's Office from clerkships or through the DOJ honors program, which I highly encourage anybody to look into. That takes place in DC. It's a job that does require a move to DC typically, but it does open many doors once you complete the honors program. But no, my path was much less straightforward. Rob and I actually went to the same law school, which at Georgia State has a fantastic health law program. I did not go into law school expecting to be interested in healthcare law. At the time I was in law school, the Affordable Care Act was all the rage and everybody wanted to know everything about that. So did I, and got into that in the healthcare law program and expected that I would be a healthcare regulatory transactional attorney. That was my goal the entire time I was in law school. Out of law school, I worked in-house at McKesson, which was a great job, but doing healthcare regulatory work, but realized quickly that I wanted to get some litigation experience as well. So from there, I moved over to a firm that where I started working with a partner who did a lot of False Claims Act cases, and right away I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue. So since that time, since about a year out of school after leaving McKesson, I have been working in the False Claims Act space, both on the defense side and now for the government.
Awesome. I think that's a really it's a different path certainly than a lot of people take. You don't hear a lot of transactional to litigation attorneys.
No, no, I think that's right. And the further along you get in your career, just so younger attorneys know, I mean, that transition does become harder. So, but it is possible to make that switch early on if you're not happy with what you're doing. It's much easier to make that switch within the first few years of practice than it might be later on.
That's a really, really good point. I think it's really important early in your career to try and fail at different things than to pigeonhole yourself into one thing at the start. So I think we've already touched on it a little bit, but do you have any advice or sage wisdom for students or early career professionals who might be interested in a similar career path?
Talk to everybody you can. It's the saying that law school doesn't teach you how to practice law is true. It also doesn't teach you about the practice of law. You learn theory, which is great and useful, and you need to know it. But when you get out there, you may not even know that certain practice areas even exist. And I certainly was not aware of, this sort of niche False Claims Act practice. I knew about healthcare fraud. I knew about the False Claims Act. I knew how it related to the anti-kickback statute and how companies needed to comply with Stark and anti-kickback and various other fraud and abuse regulations. And I was interested in that, but I really didn't even realize for a while that there was this sort of niche False Claims Act defense and even an even more niche practice where involving whistleblower attorneys. If you want to be on the plaintiff side of these cases and not work for the government, there is an entire space for that as well that has blossomed within the last decade, especially, I would say, where there are entire firms dedicated now to representing whistleblowers in False Claims Act cases. A lot of them do other whistleblower cases as well, involving SEC and things of that nature. But this one particular statute has, a whole sort of community and world built around it. So it's been great for me to learn that. But going back to the question, talk to people, find out what they do, and do that early. You are never less threatening. And when I say threatening, I mean, no one's going to think you want something when you are a 1L, let's say. They have nothing to offer you when you're a 1L. So when you cold call them to go for lunch, they know it's just to give you advice, not that you're not going to be poking around for a job. They don't have a job to offer you when you're a 1L. So you're not threatening to them in any way or making them feel uncomfortable about poking around. Well, sorry, we don't have a job to offer you. Of course they don't. You're a 1L. You're just there to learn. The same is true when you're a baby attorney. Just go to lunch with people, talk to people, network, join organizations like AHLA. AHLA helped me out a lot when I was a younger attorney. I wrote articles and was able to get my name out there a little bit. I participated in a young lawyers program and met lawyers that way. I attended conferences and sat in on panels discussing things that I had no idea were, that these, again, areas of practice even existed till I sat in a conference room and listened to people talk about it. So you can't know what you're interested in until you know what there is to be interested in. So get out there, meet people, talk about different areas of practice so that you can have a successful career. I think if you really like what you're doing, you need to know what all the options are.
Yeah, I think that's 100% excellent advice. I can't tell people you got to start this early. I heard it when I was a 1L, and I didn't start it until I was a 3L or first year attorney, and it set me back. So definitely start that as early as you can when you're as least threatening as possible, and get up and meet as many people as you can and find out what you don't know.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Sam. I think this has been really helpful for our listeners, and take care.
Thanks, Rob.